Hey everyone, Cursed Deck Builder here, and we're looking at a Sydri Galvanic Genius vehicle deck. This deck is coming from Damon's Charm, who says they're trying to figure out if going Esper for vehicles and artifacts is fun, but can't decide how it'll play once fully built. As always, this deck list will be in the video description below, and I highly recommend that you open it up, maybe on another monitor, maybe on your phone, and take a look at this deck. See what changes you would make, see what sticks out to you, and see if you agree with me with my opinions. So looking at Sydri, Sydri is an Esper 2/2 for 3 mana that has two abilities that are relevant to an artifact vehicle deck. One, for 1 blue, you animate a non-creature artifact. It becomes a creature and its power and toughness are equal to its CMC. And then the second one is for a white and a black. It gains lifelink and death touch. So I like this at the lead of a vehicle deck. Sidri's one blue ability, her first ability, will turn vehicles into creatures instead of having to crew them. And her second ability will care about vehicles that do direct damage, and that's going to be our main kind of, if we're using vehicles in Sydri, that's the direction we're thinking of. We want to animate them with Sydri as much as we can, and we want to, if they have an ETB, that's great. Otherwise, the Death Touch Lifelink effect is probably more of a combat trick. Now, before we go into this, they said artifacts/vehicles, so I think this deck is at a point that it's kind of malleable in either direction. I'm going to focus on the vehicle side mostly because, frankly, they use the word fun, and I think vehicles are fun. And if you're going to make a Sydri vehicle deck, well, I don't think that's particularly common. I could be wrong, but it's fun to do something that's a little off the wall. I also really admire their interest in trying out a new kind of deck to see if it'll work. I like that. A lot of the decks we build for Commander are kind of pre thought out, you know? It's rare that we're gonna make a deck that we don't have a common idea of where it's going, especially when we think of things like tribal decks or decks that have a very clear direction in mind, like enchantment decks and the like, where the commander fits into a very direct line. Now, Sindri is obviously an artifact deck, but to try to pivot it into a vehicle deck with the idea to see if it'll work, I like that. Let's see where that goes. So we're going to go down, we're going to look at the mana curve. We're going to see that it's mainly caught up in 2 and 3 mana, and we're going to see it kind of trails off at the end. Now that's kind of not real because Organic Extinction is our 10 mana spell, which reduces in cost. Vanquish the Horde also reduces in cost. Cards like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor reduce in cost. But Darksteel Forge and Parhelion 2 do not. So the first thing I want to do is I want to very quickly look through our vehicles, see how many of them work with our strategy to see how viable the strategy is. Now, we can see that our deck builder is already playing Fabricate and is already playing Demonic Tutor. So that gives us the idea that they're, to an extent, already happy to be tutoring for artifacts. So we don't really need to worry too much about we don't need a critical mass of vehicles. We need the good ones. We have the means to pull them out of our deck, so let's keep the good ones and drop the rest. So what is the gauge of how good a vehicle is with Sydri? Well, we have two, I'm going to say three, let's say two and a half. Two and a half main clauses that we're looking for. The half ones first, we want these vehicles to have attack triggers. That's the main thing about them. We don't want a vehicle that's just big. We want a vehicle to do something. But the two main clauses we're looking for is how difficult it is to crew, because Sidri's strength is that it crews any artifact, non-creature artifact, into a creature for 1 blue. So the vehicles crew for 1 blue. And secondly, I want to see what their power and toughness is versus their CMC, right? Because it's going to change their CMC. Sydri is going to force it to be change their CMC, change their power and toughness. Sydri is going to force that vehicle to now become its power and toughness to its CMC. So let's take a look at how that changes. Parhelion 2 is a great example. It works well. It's known for working with the Greasefang combo, who reanimates and plays it immediately, who's also seeing play, so I like that. Parhelion 2 is 8 mana, which means when animated by Sydri, it becomes an 8/8. Already love that. And Crew 4 is what I would consider a more difficult crew cost. So Parhelion 2 is an all-star in this deck. Reaver Titan, who on attack deals 5 damage. Oh, I should say Parhelion 2 has an on attack trigger, so already we like that. I'll only point it out if it's I'll point it out. Reaver Titan has an on attack trigger. We like that. It's 7 mana, so it actually reduces in power and toughness to a 7/7. That's not great, but that's still pretty high, so I don't mind that. And it has Crew 4, which once again I would consider a higher amount, higher cost to do so. So 1 blue is preferable. Now we're going to get to a little bit of a middle part where I think we're going to lose some power because these creatures are losing power and toughness. Sky Sovereign becomes a 5/5. That's not great. It has an attack trigger, which we like, and Crew 3 is it's not bad, so I'm still okay with it becoming 1 blue, but in a pinch, crewing this isn't particularly difficult. Weatherlight becomes a 4/4, so it loses 1 toughness. Again, not great, but not too bad. It has a crew ability at 3, which is still that spot that I'm okay paying 1 blue, and it has a deal combat trigger to a player, which is okay. I prefer the attack, but it's not bad. Surge Hacker Mech is where I'm starting to lose a little interest. Surge Hacker Mech does not have an attack trigger, it has an ETB trigger, and that ETB is basically a Flame Tongue Kavu effect, where it's going to deal 2 damage if it's the only card, that's the floor, and then for every other vehicle in play, it'll deal an additional 2 damage. It's not great, it's removal, it's a vehicle, I don't love it. If you crew it with Sydri, it reduces power and toughness, but it does have Crew 4, which is kind of difficult, so I'm kind of medium on it. Shorikai is a fantastic vehicle. However, it is not a Sydri vehicle. Shorikai's benefit comes from the fact that it can use its ability immediately, despite being able to be turned into a creature, and it is traditionally the ability you want Shorikai for, not the vehicle, the creature it becomes. In fact, though it has a very high crew cost of 8, which Sydri is very good at getting around, it then stops being an 8/8 and becomes a 4/4. I'm not particularly happy about that. That being said, Shorikai is such a strong card that without a doubt it should be in this deck. And the ability to, at one point in the game, let's say when you are very much in the lead and you're not too worried about it, being able to turn into a 4/4 for 1 blue, I don't mind that. I think that's still pretty good. So happy to see that. Whenever 1 or more vehicles you control attack, create a pilot. I think that's fine. So Prodigy's prototype goes from a 3/4 to a 3/3. That's okay. Crew 2 is incredibly doable, but very importantly, Crew 2 can be crewed by Sydri. So I don't even mind Crew 2, even though I wouldn't spend 1 blue on it. So this is okay. This just creates 1 creature. I don't love this. I think this is particularly on the weaker side. I think I think this is the weakest I'd be willing to go. The fact that it creates a creature even on the turn that it's summoned, because it doesn't actually care if it is crewed and a creature in order for the trigger to happen. But if it is the only vehicle, it needs to not have summoning sickness. I'm medium. It's okay. Anything lower than this, I'm going to be very critical. This I think is the weakest artifact we should be using. Peace Walker Colossus. Peace Walker Colossus allows you to crew other vehicles for 1 and a white. I don't think we need this, right? I think we have Sydri for this. And I can see that we have pilots to the right in the creature lane. So why do we need this? It also predominantly fails the Sydri test by not having a attack trigger, a damage trigger. It becomes a 3/3 versus a 6/6. Yes, crew 4 is a lot, but I'm not paying one blue for a 3/3, right? If you were going to use this, you would use this almost exclusively as an artifact because it can't even crew itself. So I don't like this. I don't think you should be playing it. Mindlink Mech. Mindlink Mech has a very small crew cost. It becomes a 3/3, so already I don't like it. But when it becomes crewed for the first time until end of turn, so this doesn't even, here's the thing, this doesn't even work with Sydri, right? This is a straight up vehicle card. You need to crew this card. Now Sydri crews it, and it becomes a copy of target creature that crewed it. Oh, okay. No, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Not only do you have a very high number of legendary creatures, like you can see all the commas here, right? What are you copying? The two targets I care about are, where is Solemn Simulacrum? Solemn Simulacrum, and maybe Baleful Strix. No, I don't like this. Mindlink Mech does not belong here. You want this in a clone deck, and this is not what this deck is. You can't even copy the non-legendary. The majority of the creatures you have, the very high percentage are legendary. Nope, don't like that. Aerial Surveyor. I like this because this is like the most Neon Genesis Evangelion art in here. I think it looks really cool. When it attacks, if defending player controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic plains, put it tap. I like this. It is losing power and it has a decent crew already. So I'd rather tap Sidri than pay a blue. However, either way, its attack trigger is powerful enough that I'm very happy to have this around. I'm looking at this card and I wonder to an extent how much I should be playing it in other white cards. White decks, sorry. I think it's underplayed because white has so much catch-up lands right now that I don't know if I really do want this in other ones, but I think it's cool and the art really is striking to me. Smuggler's Copter is okay. It becomes a 2/2. Crew 1 is already easy. I think it's fine. The looting effect is just okay. I honestly would not play this. I think it's too weak of an effect. Bankbuster, I hear a lot about this in standard. I think it just got banned. It becomes a 2/2. Crew 3 is a little difficult, and it doesn't even have an attack trigger. So using this, much like Shorokai, for its activated ability, which is kind of a ramp card, I don't mind it. I think it's fine. You're using it as a sort of mana rock. I think that's fine. But you're not activating. Mobilizer Mech. When it becomes crewed, another vehicle basically gets crewed. This will become a 2/2 and one blue, and you have to crew it. I don't like it. Toss it out. Doesn't work with Sydri. Mecha Titan Core. Okay, I recognize this is like a Cauldra kind of card where you just put a bunch of things together. I'm not going to talk too much about this. If you like this card, you will play this card. If you don't like this card, don't play this card. It is really cool if you make the thing happen, but that's mainly flavorfully fun. Imposter Imposter Mech enters the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except for it's a vehicle. I like this. This is great because it does become a 2/2, but sometimes that's fine. You're using this card for the strength of what it does. You don't mind too much about crewing it. Also, because it comes as a copy, the CMC will change. Okay, I do really like this. This has a really high ceiling. It has a low floor, but if all your opponents don't have creatures you want to copy, then you're probably ahead. So that's fine. Let's look at the last one. Flywheel Racer. Right, this just came out. It's a mana rock. It's a particularly bad mana rock. Uh, yeah, I don't think I would play this. I get the idea you want to play as many crew effects as possible, but is this really one that you want to play? I'm looking for anything that I'm looking for anything that really stands out that we want it to be constantly crewing. I don't think we really have that. So even having a high amount of vehicles doesn't even benefit us too much because there's no effect that cares about every time you crew one. Okay, so we finished the vehicles. It's taken us a bit of time to go through that, and I haven't really talked about the rest of the deck. And the reason is the rest of the deck is pretty good, right? Oh, there's all these vehicle effects right here. Sorry, vehicle effects. All these pilots that work with vehicle effects, and a lot of them are really straightforward. They do what they say. You're going to have good times if you have more more vehicles in play, and you're going to have a bad time if you don't. That's kind of it. You see what you get. And then the rest of the artifact cards are what I would consider to be particularly strong artifact card, like white blue Esper cards, right? We're playing Demonic Tutor, Anguish Unmaking. You're already playing Sword to Plowshares. You don't need to play Path because you get to play Dispatch. This is great. I love this. I think everything here is strong. You're also in that kind of bubble that I've said before, where you have made the rest of your deck outside of your main strategy of vehicles very strong, almost to make up for what might be the perceived weakness of vehicles. And I think in this kind of deck, where the majority of what I would consider the deck, the theme, like it's 50 cards almost. That's great. Having what seems to be 12, 15 cards in the side that just work with and improve that strategy, I think that's fine. I think that's a good number of powerful support cards. If these piles were huge and you had just a few artifacts, maybe I wouldn't like it as much. Even though to an extent I'm going to make some suggestions that push in that way, I'm not going to do it in a way that takes away from our strategy. So, what are my suggestions? My suggestions are obviously to be a little more critical with the vehicles that you have in here. And honestly, Darksteel Forge, I know it's a fun card, but I want you to figure out how you're going to play this card. Outside of putting it in reanimation strategies, outside of finding creatures that make a lot of mana, outside of increasing a high amount of mana rocks, I think you're better off just throwing it out. You could use a few more mana rocks. You're kind of low, but you're kind of low to the ground too. I wouldn't mind just going there, grabbing the signets. You know the ones, Dimmer Signet, Orzhov Signet, and Azoria Signet are your colors. And then once again, talismans. For us, it would be Dominance, Hierarchy, and I always forget the white-blue one. Where's the white-blue one? Am I missing it? Dominance, Hierarchy. Oh, Progress, because it has a different art. And Progress. So those can fit in pretty well. If you want to get to the point, you can cast these bigger creatures. I mean, and these 4 mana spells, you could play a few more. You don't need to. You're pretty low to the ground, right? So I don't think you desperately need to, but I don't think it would hurt to play a few more. The next thought I have is, okay, what is the other benefit of playing vehicles? The other benefit traditionally is that they're not creatures. I know that's silly, but I want you to think about that. They are not creatures. So cards like Vanquish the Horde, all your board clears get better and better because of the fact that you do not have creatures on the battlefield. Now, it gets a little trickier because by definition, we tend to have we tend to have at least one creature, probably Sydri, to crew everything. But even then, Sydri might be destroyed. Sometimes it's worth it. The main idea of casting the board clear is that you're going to be keeping the majority of your board, of your strong creatures, of your mid to late game mechs and such. So with that in mind, I wouldn't mind a few more board clears. In exchange, though, you probably have to go down on creatures. Excuse me. Cards like Thought Monitor, Wormcoil Engine, Vidalcan Archmage, these are generically good artifact creatures. Jorah is familiar, but I want you to be a little more critical of them. Are they really feeding into the theme, or are they just kind of there because they're good cards, right? How often are you playing Wormcoil Engine? Are you going to crew with Wormcoil Engine? Probably not. I think you should think about them. I think you should think about them critically, right? Excuse me. Those are the directions I would be going into. I think the deck is strong. This is obviously a first draft, so I think I need to see a second draft. The idea is here. Can we do Sidri and can we do vehicles? Yes, we can. We just need to adjust the deck into a more vehicle based theme. And I think we should step away from a bit of the general artifact theme. I know you were checking both of them. I want to lean towards the vehicle theme. If you change your mind, you're going to have to remake the deck in the other direction. But I think if you start taking out what I would consider general artifact cards, especially at the higher part of the curve, and going more towards the vehicle theme, adding mana rocks, adding board clears, things like that, I would then like to see the next draft in that direction. Because then we can start really seeing we're going to get real picky about the cards after that. We're going to see how the play pattern is. How quick and how reliably can you get one of these 5 drops when you have the mana rocks, when you have the tutors, and then when you play it, you leave it around for a turn. Like remember that the goal is that you drop something like Parhelion, you wait a turn because it does have summoning sickness once it becomes a creature. Then the turn after, you cast Sydri. Remember, Sydri does not need to be on the battlefield for all of this. In fact, I think I would like you to have 2 or 3 of your big artifacts and then play Sydri that turn. Once Sydri resolves, pay the blue mana for each of those, animate them, attack, and gain a very large advantage. Cards like Parhelion 2 especially have such an advantage because it leaves creatures on the battlefield. One attack with Parhelion, you don't even need Sydri to stay around. After that, the angels themselves will crew the Parhelion moving forward. So those are the thoughts I have. So sorry, just to reiterate, you want a strategy that involves dropping your vehicles, then playing into when you're ready, play Sidri, and then do one big attack that puts you in a very big advantage for the rest of the game. There will be a few other cards and strategies I'm going to suggest to improve that strategy, but we're not there yet. We are at the first draft. I hope this has been helpful. I really like the idea. I really like where this is going, and I want to see how far we can push it in that direction. What if you get your next draft running, or if you'd like me to look at any other deck, there is a form in the video description below that you can fill out, and I will get to see your deck and I can make a video about it. Additionally, if you would like, comment, and subscribe, do the YouTube things. It'd be incredibly helpful. The channel's still very new, and I would like engagement to go up so it can be successful. All right, good luck.